With the release of The Batman just a few short weeks away, this new movie starring Robert Pattinson as the Caped Crusader.
I'm vengeance.
Right. Made me realize this would be a perfect time to take a look back at all the Batmobile scale models that have graced shelves and workbenches over more than 5 decades. To be clear, this video is just going to be about Batmobiles. No bat cycles, bat pods, bat planes, bat wings, bat copters, bat boats, bat skis, or hovercrafts? Batcrafts? Even though model kits for almost all of these have existed at one time or another, I'm only looking at vehicles with 4 wheels and a steering wheel.
Atomic batteries to power.
Okay, those count too. First, let's set some ground rules. To get onto this list, the Batmobiles have to be glued together and painted. That means no Lego, no die-cast metal, well, mostly, no toys, and no expensive replicas. And sorry, as impressive as they can be, no paper models either. I've broken this list down into 10 different Batmobile designs from the last 72 years. That's a lot of history to cover, so for that reason I've decided to make this into a 2-parter. Make that 3 parts. There's just too much to cover in one video. So for part 1, I'm going to focus on the more classic designs from the 50s and 60s and all the kits they inspired. But don't worry, from the gaudy to the grounded, we'll look at them all. So slide down that batpole into the Batcave and join me for part 1 as I look at the history of the classic Batmobile models. Here on Scale Icons. All the way back in February of 1950, Detective Comics number 156 introduced a brand new Batmobile, designed by comic artist Dick Sprang. Described by Batman as being 10 years ahead of anything else on wheels, the new car resembled a Studebaker, but with a battering ram on the front, a crime lab in the backseat, and a gigantic Batwing on the roof, a feature that would reappear decades later on screen. Although the basic design of this Batmobile would be retained throughout the 1950s, the design would continue to be refined throughout the decade. There have been 2 kits of this particular Batmobile. First up in 1995, Horizon released its 1950s Batmobile. This 1/24th scale offering included a solid resin body, vacuum-formed transparent styrene windows, white metal parts, and rubber tires. For being a resin kit of the era, it's surprisingly detailed. But good luck finding one now though. 7 years later in 2002, die-cast metal toy car producer Johnny Lightning released a 1/24th scale kit that was something of a hybrid. Although it included a pre-painted metal body, everything else, including a full interior, wheels and undercarriage, were all styrene plastic and all required traditional model construction and painting techniques to finish. Johnny Lightning really outdid themselves here, and made sure to recreate every single feature of the backseat crime lab as it appeared back in issue 156. Arguably the best known and most loved design on this list, TVs Batmobile was designed and built by well-known custom hot rod fabricator George Barris. Starting with the Lincoln Futura concept car which had been furnished by the Ford Motor Company, when he received the prototype car from Ford, the Futura already looked like a Batmobile. I mean, come on, just look at those unique bubble canopies and those long tail fins. Barris tweaked the design even further by converting the front into a bat mask and the tail fins into bat wings. Gloss black paint, bright red trim, and yes, a 5-gallon paint can modified to replicate a jet turbine exhaust all completed the comic book look. Whether or not that red trim was a homage to this comic design is a mystery for the ages. Barris turned this prototype into the Batmobile we all know and love in just 3 weeks before filming of the TV pilot began, and with a budget of only $15,000. No fewer than 16 different kits of this version have been released since the mid-60s, starting in 1967 at the height of Batmania. Aurora Models released a plastic kit of the Batmobile in 1/32nd scale. Hobbyists could choose between 2 separate boxes, but the model parts inside were all identical. Measuring a tiny 6.5 inches in length, The kit was plagued with accuracy issues, most notably the overly short front end and hood. One very cool promotion saw the kit available to kids as part of a promotion from Brief Foods. For the princely sum of 50 cents and 3 box tops from various cookies, kids could get the Aurora kit mailed directly to them. This kit was discontinued in 1970, paving the way for a slew of unofficial garage kits in the 80s and 90s. But in 2010, Round 2 would come to the rescue and re-release the Aurora kit in 3 different versions that all used the original tooling. There was the very pricey collector's edition, which came packaged in a snazzy and completely impractical, but still cool-looking gloss black metal tin that also included a reproduction of the original packaging, as well as a bonus art print. There was the classic Batmobile in modern packaging, and finally, for the nostalgia buffs everywhere, a version of the kit featuring a reproduction of the vintage Aurora packaging, just like Grandpa built. Japanese producer Imaye released 2 different interpretations of the classic Barris design in the 70s and 80s. First, in 1978, they produced a small 1/32nd scale kit, and then in 1984, they released an even tinier 1/42nd scale version. Let's just say they took some liberties with the design. In the mid-80s, Lunar Models produced one of the first resin garage kits of the Barris design with their 1966 Batcar. At 1/25th scale, the kit included body, wheels, a full interior, vacuum-formed bubble canopies, and other small detail parts. Lunar also produced a series of conversion parts, so adventurous modelers could attempt to recreate what George Barris did back in 1966. That's converting the Lincoln Futura model kits that Revell and Monogram produced into the Batmobile. Of course, these parts are so rare now that if you tried to do today, you'd probably need that $15,000 budget Barris had back then. Now this is impressive. Rebellion Creations released their massive 1/12th, yes, 1/12th scale Batura in 1988, a vacuum form and resin monster of a kit that was designed to be fitted to the chassis of a radio-controlled car. According to their Facebook page, the Batura is now in its 8th generation, but I have a feeling these are no longer available. Adding a little technology into the mix, in 1990, Phantom Creations released the Caped Custom, a 1/25th scale resin kit that came with a flashing LED beacon, vacuum-formed windshields, and a detailed engine compartment and interior. 6 years later, TNT Models released a resin and metal kit under the banner Barris Collection. But despite George Barris's name being on the box, this really wasn't an officially licensed kit, which is probably why the word Batmobile isn't anywhere on the box. Sometime in the 1990s, Jimmy Flintstone produced a 1/25th scale resin and metal version grandly called the Flying Bat Custom, reportedly one of the most complete garage kits of the Batmobile ever produced, and it included the body, decals, photo etch metal parts, a detailed engine bay, vacuum-formed canopies, and a whole lot more. Another 1/25th scale resin and metal kit called the Black Star was produced by Magnetic Models in 2003. An exceptionally rare kit, only 500 were ever produced. This one was unique as it was sold both as a complete kit as well as individual parts, and included figures as well as an optional turbine engine. Jimmy Flintstone returned to the world of Batman in 2005 with a tiny 1/64th scale resin and metal kit, but I've been unable to find very much about it online, other than a few tantalizing rumors that it could be used as a body for a slot car. And finally, in 2011, Round 2 followed up their classic Batmobile re-release the year before with a brand new 1/25th scale kit that featured all new tooling. 3 versions were available, including one with a pre-painted body. Not only was this version in common scale for car models, it also fixed all of the accuracy issues that plagued the Aurora kit years earlier. Even better, a deluxe edition in the 1/25th scale included tons of extra detail parts, decals, figures, and even photo etch parts. After 41 years, a brand new, highly detailed, and very accurate model of the classic Adam West Batmobile was finally on hobby store shelves everywhere.
Hey, it's the Batmobile! Just look!
And is still available. Batman ran for 3 seasons between 1966 and 1968, Plus, there was a spin-off movie in 1966. The series was incredibly popular at the time, so it stands to reason that some of the designs would make their way into the source material, the comics themselves. Published in January of 1968, Detective Comics number 371 featured the very first appearance of a Batmobile inspired by the Barris design in a story called Batgirl's Costume Cut-Ups. The move from TV screens to the comic book page was accompanied by a few artistic liberties. The overall design was simplified, the bat wings became simple tail fins, and many of the more complex features, including the flashy red pinstriping and the red bat logos, were completely eliminated, no doubt to make it easier to draw every month. Like all comic book Batmobiles, it wasn't long before the design was changed, and in this case it was only 4 months before it was replaced with something totally different. Although there have been 3 different toys of this design, only 2 model kits of the Batmobile of the 1960s have ever seen the light of day. In 2002, Johnny Lightning released a 1/24th scale screw-together kit to accompany their Batmobile of the 1950s release. Like that other kit, this one featured a pre-painted die-cast metal body, but the interior parts, the chassis, and the detailed engine were all traditional styrene parts requiring assembly and paint. The detail level was surprisingly high, and the kit built out into a beautiful model. That same year, Polar Lights produced an all-styrene kit, identical to the die-cast version but with a plastic body, extra detail parts including chrome and clear parts, decals, and figures. '78 1978 saw the last of the Barris-influenced Batmobile designs in, of all places, the Saturday morning cartoon series Challenge of the Superfriends. Fun fact, this show was a favorite for 10-year-old me. Although it featured a few similarities to the classic design from the 1960s, such as the tail fins and bubble-shaped windscreens, this new Batmobile was a smaller and more aerodynamic open-top roadster. Like the Barris design 12 years earlier, it also found its way into comics as well. In 1996, Horizon released a 1/24th scale solid resin homage to the classic 80s comic book Batmobile. The design was once again sculpted by Sen Maruyama, who had created Horizon's 1950 Batmobile the year before. Take a look at that box though. Despite the photos, it only came with the Batmobile. The batplane was missing in action. Regardless, this is a unique design and it's exceedingly rare today. So that's part 1 of my look at the classic Batmobile models of the last 50 or so years. Given the huge number of releases, I'm willing to bet that if you've made it this far into the video, you've probably built at least one of them. And if you have, I'd love to hear about it in the comments below. So tune in next time for part 2, where I look at how the design evolved even further.
Same bat time, same bat channel.
With big budget, big screen appearances in the 80s and 90s. Don't forget to check out my other videos, and if you enjoyed this one, please click that like button, and while you're at it, click subscribe and the notification bell so you never miss a single video. You've been watching Scale Icons, and I'll see you soon at the workbench.